Benham was born in 1980 in a small town, Banbury, far from London, in the UK. He did well at school, and later served as a lentinant in the army. He was a lover of everything extreme. After the army, Ben went to work in the Hordon Jenners freemen in his town in the emergency department. He started as an assistant, but then in late 2003 he began working metal. He was trusted only with patients with mild, non-serious illnesses. Ben found this boring and uninteresting. He wanted to work with more complex cases. Soon, strange incidents began to occur in the emergency department. Robert Rowinson, 51, was admitted to hospital after drinking a bottle of gin and taking painkillers. He began to choke when Ben gave him painkillers that he did not need. He was saved. Gerald Boss, 65, was admitted with pulmonary emphysema. This is a disease that makes it difficult for patients to breathe. Gerald was choking and having trouble breathing when he got to the hospital, but he was not in serious condition. He was analyzed and given a treatment that was supposed to help him. Ben was his brother and gave him the medicine. After one of his visits, Gerald Boss collapsed. He could not breathe at all. Luckily, the doctors were able to quickly revive him and save his life. 53-year-old David Lung was in the hospital with a stomach problem. He was in stable health, but a few minutes after Ben examined him, David suddenly stopped breathing. He was also saved. 77-year-old David Nelson was in good health for his age. He also stopped breathing as soon as Ben visited him. He was saved. 60-year-old John Tormben was in the hospital and had no serious health problems before Ben visited him. But after his treatment, he fell into a coma. His family and the hospital staff were very worried about this. He was in a coma for 6 days. He came to, but never fully woke up. And he died, later in 2009. Another patient who died from respiratory arrest was Anthony Bateman. He suddenly went into respiratory failure and they couldn't save him. He died on June 6, 2004. And another fatality was David Only. He was a 77-year-old diabetic with a serious heart condition. He was admitted to hospital on June 21, 2004. And they put him on an insulin drip. The nursing shift was there with David Only the whole time. He was doing well. That was until Ben came in for the morning shift. Then, 35 minutes after Ben's visit, he died. There were 18 such cases in total. The hospital usually had about 5 fatal cases a month. But not 18 incidents in 2 months. Most of them were saved, but the numbers were off the charts. 2 patients died immediately. Another one, after a coma, also died after some time. And the cause of these cases was the same: respiratory failure. These were very strange coincidences. In all cases, the patients began to suffocate sharply after Ben's visit. At first, the hospital staff did not notice these coincidences. When there were more victims and the same thing happened to them, the staff paid attention to it. But no one could understand what was happening. They did not notice that all these incidents occurred during Ben's trial. An investigation was conducted. The hospital staff began to supply medical records, treatments, medications, and study the lists of employees who had contact with these patients. And in all these stories, police officer Benji Ming appeared. He was on duty each time during these incidents. The hospital management questioned him. Ben denied the accusations and justified his presence near these patients by the fact that he had a lot of shifts. And he was in the hospital more often than others. Therefore, the probability that he could be near these patients was higher. He claimed that he was always ready to help patients, so he was the first to come to the rescue. Some hospital staff even believed him. They thought that he just had the so-called hero syndrome, and he wanted to save everyone. The patients really loved him. He was very sweet and kind to everyone. But in the last case, when the patient, or rather he died, they tried to save him, and he even came to his senses for a while. And he said that Ben gave him some medicine. At the same time, Ben did not need to give David any medicine. This was strange. The examination showed that Ben gave him a sedative. All the other patients who suffered confirmed that they also received some medicine from Ben, and later they felt bad. Then it became clear that Ben had given them these drugs on purpose. Apparently he, as a thrill seeker, wanted to get an adrenaline rush from saving their lives. He had given them these drugs on purpose so that they were on the brink of life and death. And he could save them and enjoy it. When Ben came to work at the hospital the next day, the police were already there. They found a syringe in his coat pocket, which was damp and cool. It turned out that in a panic, upon seeing the police, Ben had poured the contents of the syringe into his pocket. But it was possible to establish that it was a sedative drug, which he had taken to David Unlay before, and he had died. He claimed that he had accidentally taken the syringe home after his last shift and returned it. As his colleagues said, there really are cases when medical personnel forget and can take some drugs with them. And even syringes. But why then, upon seeing the police, did he get scared and pour out the contents of the drug if he had simply accidentally forgotten to him? The police raided Ben's flat. He lived on the hospital campus with his girlfriend. They found the same prescription drugs there. He admitted to stealing the drugs from the hospital for his own use. He was then taken into custody for questioning. The man admitted to knowing each of the 18 patients named during the investigation or otherwise, but denied any wrongdoing. During questioning, he told the police, "I think there's some kind of curse on me." The hospital found 27 similar cases that Geen could have been involved in. 9 were not counted due to insufficient evidence. Bon was arrested and charged with 2 counts of murder and 15 counts of grievous bodily harm. At the trial, his father Mick Geen claimed his son was innocent. He was a good-natured, outgoing guy who loved adventures and challenges. In the arrest theory, Ben told his father that he was learning a lot at the hospital, was not afraid of difficulties, and had been in difficult situations several times. But he really loved saving people and considered it his calling. Ben's colleagues called him a dedicated and enthusiastic employee and confirmed that his confidence exceeded his competence. Ben was always in high spirits when he managed to successfully resuscitate these patients after respiratory arrest, and even bragged to his doctor, "When I'm on duty, I always successfully resuscitate." According to Venia, he used various methods to send his victims to the brink of death, including insulin, muscle relaxants, and sedatives, which caused them to stop breathing. He experimented with these drugs because patients were found to be taking different drugs that were not prescribed to them. The prosecution argued that such cases of respiratory arrest are extremely rare, especially without a cause. The defense argued that the death and respiratory failure were natural causes and that Ben was the victim of a witch hunt by hospital officials. The defendant claimed that he accidentally took the syringe home after a stressful shift at the mill. The team found Geen guilty. On May 10, 2006, 26-year-old Ben Geen was sentenced to 2 life sentences for murder and 8 years for assault, with a possibility of parole after 30 years. In 2009, Ben appealed, which was granted. He assembled a new team of lawyers to defend himself. The defense included medical expert Professor Tavi Tenisa. He argued that there was insufficient statistical evidence to prove that 18 cases were an abnormality. The defense also called an expert statistician, Professor Jane Hutton from the University of Warwick. She said that the number of deaths was normal, and that there was no reliable statistical basis for respiratory attacks, so it could not be said that this was an abnormality. In her opinion, the investigation at the hospital could have been influenced by previous attitudes towards Ben. Father Benemick confirmed that many people at the hospital disliked Ben and could even have set him up on purpose. Do not say that every time something went wrong at the hospital, Ben was often blamed for it without any reason. Another expert statistician for the defense, Norman Fenton, a professor at the University of London, said that Ben could have been a victim of what is called increased coincidence. Because he worked a lot, he had more shifts than others. And, accordingly, he crossed paths with patients more often. An expert witness for Dr. Wendy Haskett's defense argued that there was always a risk of death in hospitals. This left 2 options. Either Ben was an angel of death, preying on patients at their most vulnerable, or he was the UK's worst eunuch brother. The experts did not claim that Ben was innocent. They simply argued that the statistical evidence in the case had not been handled properly. The court disagreed, saying that academic statistical opinion, no matter how good, was not true, and upheld the conviction. His subsequent appeals were rejected. Before this case, there was the sensational case of Harold Shipman, who received the death sentence for the enlightening doctor. It was confirmed that Harold had killed 218 of his patients, and possibly more. He regularly walked around his area, visiting elderly women. The doctor allegedly treated them, but in reality he injected them with a lethal dose of morphine. After each murder, he took some trinket as a keepsake and sent condolences to relatives. Harold even forged wills from the dead. They get good money this way. He was arrested in 1998, and in 2000 he was sentenced to life imprisonment. Harold hanged himself in his cell on January 13, 2004. Just 23 days before the first patients at Hordon Hospital suffered respiratory arrest. Obviously, it was not Harold, and the handwriting was not his. But this case showed that murderers can also be among the medical staff. And therefore, we need to be active so that such cases do not happen again. A group supporting Ben even created a whole website to attract public attention to his case. They believe that Ben was the victim of a gross miscarriage of justice and are in favor of a fair trial. Because there have been precedents where the Meshchinsky workers were wrongly convicted and later proven guilty. To this day, Ben is behind bars and denies all charges brought against him. Write your opinion in the comments. Do you think all of this could have been a coincidence? Or does Ben have something to do with it? If you like this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, click the bell so you don't miss a new video. Thank you all for watching and supporting us.